I actually just did the years that you played.
Oh, really?
Research, yes.
Okay.
The little engine that could, they called you.
He got banged up.
I know it's.
So he had a traumatic brain injury and it's affected his life.
Oh, absolutely.
They did an article my junior year,
It's.
For my dad's generation, who was there, who was in World
and
War II.
they said
They treated those
diminutive
guys-
Mark Ward, and I had to
this
go up.
generation to be
I thought it
aged
meant
out,
powerful
taken care
or
of.
something like that, so I had to look it up and it said it meant small.
You want to talk about hot button for me? That is my hot button.
Now, this is, we're gonna clip this one out. But
Keep in touch.
there was an article for one of the games
Appreciate you, man.
where, I don't know if it was you or the other running back that were benched for a series because you got hit out of bounds.
What do you want me to?
And there was such frustration with whoever got knocked out of bounds that he knocked
I'm showing you
something over, and
because we're not plugged in.
either Giesman or another coach said, that's it, you're not playing for the next series.
Yeah, I don't think that was me.
Okay, ready to go, guys.
Because I didn't.
All right, here we go. Okay, we're hanging with Mark Ward. Wardy, what's happening, buddy?
Not much.
All right.
Enjoying the summer.
You're enjoying the summer. All right,
Yes.
first of all, I want you to take me back to the thrilling days of yesteryear. You have one of the most unique seats in the house because your dad was a head coach at Penn, a couple of stops before Geese got there, and then you had a chance to play for Geese in the early stages. You were his impact guy. So what was it like growing up in the Penn family prior to the Giesman regime, if you will?
With my dad, I got to go to practice a couple times, and my dad was a great athlete. You know, played at Notre Dame, asked to try out for the Pirates and stuff. So ever since I was little, everything was sports, football, baseball, basketball. When he was the coach, it was the greatest thrill to be able to go out on the practice field with them and watch them practice and just seeing the older kids. So we've always had that passion for sports in our family. And when we got into school, we just had such a great group of athletes in my class that, especially in football, that it was our favorite time of the year, and practice was fun, and it was just something that we thoroughly enjoyed. It was a special time.
Has Dad gone back and shared some of the dynamics of what it was like being the head coach at Penn, or has he kept that on the QT?
First of all, Dad doesn't talk much about anything that he did athletically. I had to find out a lot of it secondhand, Notre Dame, Penn, whatever. He always said he was in over his head. He got out of Notre Dame, spent 1 year as an assistant coach to Ron Meyer, and then became the head coach, and they joined a new conference that year, also got into a better conference. So he said that it was trial by fire, and he did more things wrong the first couple years than right. I think a couple of times they were 500 during the season, but meeting a lot of his former players and stuff, they all said that they loved playing for him, and knowing my dad, the values that he instilled in them were very important.
When you look back on having been a successful high school coach in your own life, and you look back on his resume of coaching, and you're hearing those comments from former players come back, isn't that what it was really all about?
It is. You know, when you first get into coaching, you think about the wins being the most important thing. But as you get in, I coach football for over 30 years. It's the relationships you built with the kids, the values you instilled in them along the line that was the most important. And they're of course going to remember some of the games, but to hear them make comments about my dad, like how he was such a good person and he helped them out at a time in their life when they needed a little guidance or leadership, that means more than any wins or losses on the record.
All right, now let's go fast forward to your playing time at Penn High School. Having watched Dad coach there, then there was a break, and then next thing you know, you find yourself as a Kingsman. What was the difference that you noticed as you watched the programs change from me, because you hold a really unique chair that you sat in, because not a lot of people had a chance to see these things that you did. So how do you see those transitional years?
When I started playing, and you could tell when Coach Giesman got in there that there was a different attitude. You could tell that the momentum each year, the teams were getting better, winning more games, but it wasn't about the wins and losses, it's how they were playing. And you could just see that change going through the years. In '75, the first year that they made the playoffs in the Valpo game, to the years after that, you could just see the system evolving and the players buying into the system, and each year there was improvement.
Coach Giesman says that you were one of those most important players in the early stages of the program. He says this guy was just a little dynamo, I think was what the quote was. When you hear something like that, what does that make you feel?
I feel very privileged to have played with Coach Giesman. And I owe Brian Zilmer and John Gushwaw, because they weren't real big running backs. They played before me, so I don't know of a whole lot of coaches that would have taken a 5'4" running back and allowed them to play in the South Bend schools, at the Mishawaka schools. But Coach Giesman gave me the opportunity to play. A lot of times you'd find people my size out at wide receiver or someplace like that. So I feel very privileged to have played for Coach Giesman, because he gave me that opportunity. Now, my dad always instilled in me that size doesn't matter, and people have a hard time believing. I had the advantage. When I ran low. And if you were a 6'1", 6'2" linebacker, you had to get down to my level to make a tackle. Then the advantage was all mine. So I never ever saw that as a disadvantage. Plus you hide behind Don Doan and our offensive lineman. It took them 5 yards to figure out where I was at. And then I got a couple yards on my own after that. But I was very lucky to play for Coach Giesman, and I was very lucky to play with the other seniors on the team and juniors on the team. It was a very special time in Penn football.
All right, I want you to start with the senior year, and we'll work our way on backwards. What do you recall, and what jumps out, Mark, about your senior season?
Well, at the end of our freshman year, we had a mission, and there was no doubt in our minds that we were going to win a state championship. We had a special group. We had, and that was back in the time where athletes played more than one sport. But what was unique about our senior year, that all our players, their best sport was football. And that's very unique. And we honestly thought by the time we left Schmucker that in the next 3 years we were going to win a state championship.
So your senior year, working our way backwards, you look, was there a game that jumped out at you? Was there something that happened during that senior season that you will forever be ingrained in your mind?
Well, I don't know if it'd be a good thing, but one of the things that stands out, first of all, our defense was tremendous.
Oh, yeah.
All right, they gave up 3 touchdowns, averaged 3 points a game during the regular season, which gave the offense more time to be on the field. And our offense was very good. That was a complete ball team all the way around, defensively and offensively. And we took care of people pretty easily during the regular season. In fact, most of the games offensively, we didn't even play in the latter stages of the third quarter or the fourth quarter. But I remember, and one of my biggest regrets that I have is on the last regular season game of the year against Michigan City, I hurt my ankle and hobbled me into the playoffs. And I never was 100% for the playoffs. So that stands out to me the most. During my senior year, I have that regret of what if I had been 100% for the playoffs? Would it have changed the results of anything? So, but it was just a special group, total dominance. offensively, especially defensively.
Lost, what, one game?
Lost one game, lost to Hobart, right
I
there
was,
at the
I was on
end.
the coaching staff at Hobart at the time. Many people in northwest Indiana, I know the Hobart people feel, and many people feel it was the greatest football game in the history of the region.
They should.
Well, I mean, not because of who won or who, I mean, it was just the aura of two great teams, two legends of their own respective communities, two programs that did it the right way, who their expectations were off the charts. And I mean, we could create a book on the 1979 Hobart Penn football game.
I remember.
There were so many things going on simultaneously.
I remember coming out for pregame. We had a little routine where we'd run down the field and just check the field out and cut and toss the ball around a little bit. And I just looked up at the Hobart stands and it looked like it went on forever. It was such an intimidating place to play. But it was a tremendous ball game. And since the game, I've gotten copies of the game, because being just an offensive player, you didn't see much of what was going on defensively during the game, but getting a chance to see that, and they've even got a special on YouTube about that game. Yeah, that was a pretty special night. And
All right, take me back to the junior season, the year leading up to your swan song. What was special about your 11th grade year?
junior season, just at Penn at the time, you very rarely got to play as a junior. You paid your dues as a sophomore and a junior, and you got to play your senior year. That's the way it was. And just having the opportunity to play as a junior and taking advantage of every opportunity that I got. A couple of overtime games, a legendary game with Mishawaka.
Yep. Rogan
10,000 people at the ball game. All right, a lot of close games that year. Adams was 2-7, and we just barely beat them 14-7. And they had a lot of D1 players on the team. But just having the opportunity to play as a junior, and again, Dan Goodman, my running mate, was a tremendous running back, and you could just see that things. My sophomore year, we went 7-3, didn't make the playoffs. My junior year, we went 10-0 and lost in the first game of the playoffs. But you could just see the momentum building for something great to happen. And so, my junior year, having that opportunity to play quite a bit, and there was quite a few of the seniors, the kids in my class that got to play that junior year.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the junior year was the year that the Saturday practices were changed forever, because a couple of guys got injured. Corey missed the whole year. Correct me if I'm wrong. This part of the story, I remember Chris telling me about it.
Saturday practices could get brutal.
Right.
Because that's when the #1 offense went against the #1 defense, because a lot of times we would spend all week being on the scout team. So we didn't get any time to practice our own stuff. So Saturdays would be basically a scrimmage against the #1 defense, and it got brutal. And so you had to put an end to that, because we were the hardest hitting team on the schedule every Saturday, and the risk was high.
There was a case in point. Little did we know, in hindsight, would tell us that there's this guy who was a teammate of yours on the same class that graduated with you, and they would go on to have a pretty good senior season. Got a chance to play a little college football. Had a chance to come back and be an assistant coach with Geese, and we're talking about Corey Owen, who's now the head football coach. Did you get an inkling of that Corey was destined to do this?
Well, just from the family itself, you knew that was the plan. But we're so proud. I've talked with Brent Keller and a lot of my teammates and stuff, and we're so proud of what Corey has done at Penn, because what he stepped into were not easy shoes to fill, but he was the perfect person for the job, coming from the Yeoman family and a background of coaches in the family, and he has just done a tremendous job. When he played, he was a very, very nasty, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but he was a mean, tough, nasty football player. But as a coach, I couldn't believe the difference in the temperament of Corey. But he was the right man for the job to carry on what Giesman had done. And like I said, as a classmate of his, we're so proud of the accomplishments that he's made.
You've been blessed because you are part of the Penn Football Program. And then your next part of your career, you go and work for another multi-state champion head coach in Bill Sharp, who I have great admiration for. So you've had a chance to play for one Hall of Famer. You played with a Hall of Famer who's now a head coach. And then you're playing, you're coaching with a Hall of Famer, Bill Sharp, who has a bunch of Hall of Famers on his staff. So what a blessed life.
Oh, I'll tell you what, I think I was part of the two best coaching staffs in Indiana football history. They would be ranked very high there. And the funny thing about the two is that the way that Coach Giesman did it and the way that Coach Sharp did it were total 180s from each other. The system and how the discipline and how they went about it, but the results were the same. And 30 years of coaching makes me go back and appreciate all the more of what happened as a junior and a senior, and watching the coaching staff, how I mean, we had total belief in what our coaches were telling us to do. Coach Giesman would have told me to bark before a play, I would have done it. Or if he'd have told me to run backwards into the line of scrimmage, I'd have done it. And the same way with Coach Sharp at Jimtown. All the kids trusted us, believed in what we were telling them, and that's why both programs were very successful.
Is there a defining Penn moment for Mark Ward?
I would say the defining moment was just being opportunistic enough to be in the class that I was in, with Corey Yeoman, with Kevin Krieg, with Kent Piotrowski, with Brent Keller, Steve Susky, Doyle Weaver, Kenny Cotter. That was a special group of football players, and I think we won the first playoff game in Penn history, and we kind of set a benchmark for what was to come a couple of years later. I think that we, like I said, you couldn't find a better defensive football team, and offensively we weren't too bad either.
Once again, correct me if I'm wrong, the Jimmies and the Kingsmen both won a state championship on the same weekend?
Yes, we did. What a special weekend.
What was that like?
Oh, it was double fun. All right, not only celebrating with my coaches at Jimtown, but also being able to see the people from Penn and stuff and celebrate with them. It can't get any better than that. You know, that was just the perfect weekend on how things went. And it's a testament to both programs. You know, they are known, storied histories of being one of the best football programs in the state of Indiana, and continue to do so.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir.